pulled over, searched without reason, and humiliated. But when her husband arrived, that's when the real confrontation began. Angela Hayes adjusted her rearview mirror in her silver sedan, the hum of the highway fading as she turned onto a quieter suburban road in Dallas. The evening air hung heavy, and the sequins on her gown shimmered faintly under the dim streetlights. She had just left a fundraiser, an event supporting a local community center she cared deeply about. Angela felt proud of the work being done, but more than anything, she was eager to get home to her family. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Her husband, Malcolm Hayes, the newly appointed Dallas County Police Commissioner. Angela smiled softly. Almost home, she murmured to herself, not bothering to pick up. Then, the flash of red and blue lights in her rearview mirror caught her attention, a police cruiser. Angela's brows knitted together as she slowed and pulled to the side. Her mind raced. She hadn't been speeding. She hadn't missed any stop signs. She hadn't even been on her phone. Maybe it's just a routine stop, she thought, rolling down her window as the officer approached. A tall man with a stern expression wasted no time. "License and registration," he said curtly. Without hesitation, Angela handed over her documents. "Good evening, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" The officer barely looked at her before replying, his tone clipped. "We received a call about a vehicle matching this description being involved in suspicious activity in the area." Angela's heart skipped a beat. "Suspicious activity," she repeated, keeping her voice steady despite the unease creeping in. "Step out of the car, ma'am." Angela hesitated. "Excuse me? I don't understand." "Step out of the car. Now." His tone turned firm, leaving no room for argument. As another cruiser pulled up, two more officers got out, their flashlights cutting through the night. Angela's hands trembled slightly as she unbuckled her seatbelt and opened the door, keeping her hands visible, just as her husband had always taught her. "I'm complying," she said, calm but firm. "But I'd like to understand why I'm being treated this way." Her composure seemed to agitate them further. One officer began rifling through her back seat and trunk without asking permission, while the others stood close, watching her every move. Angela's pulse pounded. She had nothing to hide, yet she was being treated as if she were guilty of something. The humiliation stung. But she wasn't the kind of woman to back down. "I'd like to call my husband," she said, her voice slicing through the tension. One officer scoffed. "You can do that after we're done here." Angela clenched her jaw, but held her tongue. She refused to escalate the situation. Instead, she silently prayed someone would intervene before this spiraled out of control. But she had no idea just how much worse things were about to get. She stood beside her car, the cool night air brushing her arms as she watched them rummage through her belongings. Her neatly organized trunk, filled with fundraiser brochures and event materials, was being torn apart like a crime scene. One officer picked up a stack of pamphlets. "What's all this?" Angela kept her voice calm. "I just left a fundraiser. Those are brochures for the community center." The officer stared at her for a moment before tossing them back into the trunk without a word. Another, a younger officer with nervous energy, stepped closer. "Ma'am, are there any weapons, drugs, or illegal items in this vehicle?" "No, officer," Angela replied, patience wearing thin. "I've told you, I've done nothing wrong. I'd appreciate an explanation for why I'm being treated this way." Her controlled tone only seemed to irritate them more. "We're just doing our job," the older officer barked, slamming the trunk shut. Angela's phone, still on the passenger seat, buzzed again. "Malcolm, may I retrieve my phone to call my husband now?" she asked. The officers exchanged glances. No sudden movements, one warned, as if she were a threat. Angela resisted the urge to roll her eyes and complied, carefully reaching for her phone. The officers almost looked disappointed when her behavior gave them no justification for their suspicions. "We're running your plates and license," one muttered, stepping away. Angela folded her arms, watching as the second cruiser's spotlight illuminated her car. The scrutiny, the assumptions, the complete disregard for her dignity. It was infuriating. But she kept her cool, knowing that any frustration could be twisted into an excuse to escalate further. With steady fingers, she dialed Malcolm. He picked up instantly. "Angela, are you okay? I've been calling." She cut him off. "Malcolm, I've been pulled over. They're searching my car without cause. I need you here. Now." Malcolm's voice shifted, concern mixing with authority. "Where are you?" "I'm coming." Angela gave him her location, her voice faltering just slightly under the weight of the situation. "Please hurry." She ended the call and noticed the officers watching her closely, their postures stiffening. They had no idea who she had just called. But something about her confidence unsettled them. Minutes dragged by, each one feeling longer than the last. Then headlights approached. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop nearby. The driver's door opened. Malcolm Hayes stepped out. His tall frame exuded authority, his face a mask of restrained anger. And what happened next? No one saw it coming. To be continued.